3 countries by age 7, a career that started sweeping floors, and a question that might just reframe everything you think about work, leadership, and what it means to be human in the age of AI.
Like, for instance, I love the story of traffic, because when one lives in Israel, when the traffic light is in your favor, you can go. If you can't lead yourself, how do you expect to lead other people?
Carbon-based beings versus silicon now, because of the state at which AI is now integrating with robotics and machines, right? If it can't think, we will have this, where we will be the carbon, they will be the silicon-based, and what's going to happen in between.
Welcome to How Our Tools Shape Us. In this episode, host George C.O.C. Samuel sits down with Ariyeh Ginsberg, a business consultant who's lived across 3 continents, built and turned around companies across industries, and now thinks deeply about where human consciousness fits in a world being reshaped by AI. Let's get into it.
All right. What's up, everybody? This is George C.O.C. Samuels, and I am here with Ariyeh Ginsberg, who I have the pleasure of being introduced to thanks to our mutual friend, Charles. And so today we're just going to go straight into it. I'm loving the vibe already. And perhaps we'll just start with, what is your story, Ariyeh? And, where did you begin? Because, we spoke about where the accent was from. And of course, do your best without giving, an hour-long story about where you started. And then we'll go from there and go into more of the business stuff, work stuff, etc.
Okay, so do you want the personal stuff or do you want
personal?
Okay.
Then go to the personal.
All right. So I've lived in 3 different countries by the time I was the age of 7. I started off in South Africa. Then we emigrated to Israel for a bit. Then we came back to South Africa for a bit. And then I went to go and live in Scotland for a bit.
So which city in South Africa?
In South Africa, I was originally born in Pretoria, but I lived in Johannesburg most of my life.
Nice.
In Scotland, it was Edinburgh. And in Israel, it was a place called Netanya, which is on the coastline.
Okay.
What that does is, as a youngster, it causes chaos, but as an adult, you suddenly realize that it's a gift, because you're not stuck on a paradigm of belief, which normally we get fixated on. And it's not, it's an unconscious play. It's like, you're programmed from your surroundings, your parents, everything else, your teachers, it plays automatically unless you become self-conscious and you say to yourself, well, what do I choose? Is this something that's me, or is it someone else's idea of what me is? So it gave me that ability. Like, for instance, I love the story of traffic, because when one lives in Israel, when the traffic light is in your favor, you can go. Not that necessarily people always abide by the principle, but and then in Scotland, when you even touch the roadside at, say, I don't know if you guys call it a zebra crossing, that's what we call it in South Africa. It's the cars stop, an immediate halt. You don't even have to look. I mean, you should, but that's how it's and then in South Africa, it doesn't matter if it's green. If you're standing in the middle of the road, you've got to watch the car. It's not the car watching you. Okay, so there's a like a very simple example of how 3 different cultures approach traffic. Now,
the same thing.
There's how people interact. What I've learned as an adult here in Israel, because we're being bombed at the moment. So if a siren goes off, don't take it personally. I'm going to the bomb shelter. But what I've learned from Israelis is they're very present. They're not, they yes, the siren went off the other night, and I came out, and people were talking. You would have thought it was a street party, excitement, happy to see each other. It was an incredible experience because if you're not present with yourself in the situation, you can be going in what I call affect, because basically then your external circumstances are guiding you and forcing you into something which might not naturally be you. And that's why I love children, because not that in any way, but the reason why I love children is that they don't have preconceived ideas about what is behavior. And what's quite nice, I know it's frustrating for the older generation, is they don't care what the rules were. They're making their own rules. And I think that if you look at technology and the way it's going, it separates that. What do I want? What's me? Don't tell me a story. I want real. I want something that's touching my heart, that makes me excited, that moves me. And that, I think, is the key. And with the knowledge that's available all over, I, out of interest, I put into AI all the different religions. I did it externally once. But one of the things that's the key message is love your neighbor. It's not complicated. But if you don't love yourself, how do you love your neighbor? And and that affects everything else that you're doing in your life, especially work-wise, especially family-wise, especially parent-wise, being a child to parents. Your self-acceptance and self-worth without judgment makes you enjoy people and see the better part of them than focusing on the negative of them. So suddenly someone who's one of the best books I've ever read is Leo Buscaglia, Teach Only Love. And he said that he was on campus, and he walked up to someone who he didn't know, and he said, "Hi, good day. I'm Leo Buscaglia. Pleased to meet you." And the person said, "I don't know you. Who are you?" And he said, "Sorry, I messed it up a bit." He first said hello. They said, "Who are you?" He said, "I'm Leo Buscaglia. Pleased to meet you." They said, "I don't know you." So he said, "Okay, fine." The next day he came again. And again he said, "Good morning, how are you? Pleased to meet you." And what he taught was, I think it's teach only love. But the lesson from him was that if you focus on the good in people, that's what you can bring out. He was stuck on. You can look at him on YouTube. He's got some amazing. But it's finding the best parts of yourself, especially in leadership. When you're in leadership of other people, you first need to be able to lead yourself. If you can't lead yourself, how do you expect to lead other people? If you're not excited about bringing out the best parts of yourself and understanding where your strengths and weaknesses are, how then do you create a team? Because someone said to me, "Well, aren't you being vulnerable and want people to take advantage?" I said, "Why? If you don't like what's going on, you just say, that's not me." I mean, if it was me, I would do it, but it's not me. So we need to change how we're doing this. I'm talking, and I just feel like I'm talking a lot.
No, this is perfectly fine. I think a good sort of segue in as well, right? Is it's super fascinating the countries that you mentioned that you moved through to. Why those countries specifically?
So I'll tell you why. My dad's actually an orthopedic surgeon. The reason why we were moving from country to country, he was studying medicine. And it's quite interesting that I come from a family of medical people, but I find that if you look at the world's communication and interaction, money is a key element to achieving what your personal passion is. If you cannot interact it into a monetary benefit, people won't support it. You can't afford to pay people. The days of freebies and causes, I think I sometimes write on Quora answers, and someone said, well, what's the importance of money? And I said, well, even in religion, the religious leader needs to pay lights, water, electricity, buy himself food, accommodation. So everything is a money orientated energy, if you want to call it. I'm getting a bit esoteric. Why don't
Perfect.
because at the end of the day, it's a tool. It doesn't make you better or worse. If you haven't worked out inside yourself that sense of peace and the ability to maximize your experience with whatever you're doing, then you're not going to be good at it. And you're not going to find yourself aligning with experiences that build you in character and help you to grow as a person. Because we organic. It's not a set. Like one of the things that I like to say is when people say, "What happens if you have failure?" So the question is that I like people to remember: when you were learning to walk, how many times did you fall? And if you don't remember,
Anytime.
you learn. Yeah, and if you don't know how to walk and you can't remember, look at a kid trying to learn how to walk. And how many times do they fall and get up? And today you don't even think about it. When you stand up, you walk. It's not even a conscious thought. So yes, you're going to fail. Yes, that's part of learning. That's part of life. I think the key in our interaction going into the future is taking responsibility. Because yes, as long as you're blaming other people, you don't learn from the process because it wasn't your issue. It's someone else's issue. And therefore, why must I reflect on myself as to what I can do better? And the moment that you are prepared to look at your life like that, not that it should be a judgment and I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm going to smack myself around and hit myself against the wall. That's not going to change things. It's rather to say, okay, maybe I could have done this differently. Or another thing that for me is very important is who you use as a mentor. Because at the end of the day, someone who doesn't work similarly to the way you do is going to cause you chaos and pain. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's like a lion and a lamb. If a lion's learning from a lamb, the lamb's going to say, we must eat grass, we must stand in the meadow, and the lion
wrong advice.
And he's also not going to be happy because he's trying to be a sheep when he's a lion, and vice versa. So you might not fit in a certain area, but the reality is, if you're aware of that, then go and find the area that you do fit into. And that's the same as startups and business and even religious path. One of the religions I studied, and I know you shouldn't discuss religion and business, but one of the religions...
it's okay. That's true.
They do not expect their kid to make a choice of which religion they choose until the kid's 15. And as long as it's a monotheistic religion, the kid has blessing to go and follow it. So you actually, if you think about it in today's time and terms, your exploration needs to be for yourself. Someone else can't prescribe what your groove is. Sorry to use it like that, but they're all going in the same direction. They're all going to land up in the same. It's to uplift your personal life to achieve the best that you can. And the only way you're going to do that, yes, there's lessons from everyone, and you can learn from everyone, and you should learn from everyone. But don't bash yourself if you're not achieving the ability to stick yourself with a needle and not feel any pain.
Yeah. You sound like someone who's had a lot of very interesting life experiences. And so, this might be a good way to also segue into what do you now do for work, right? And we can kind of stitch those two together.
That background, 3 countries, 3 cultures, 3 completely different ways of moving through the world, gave Ariyeh a lens most people never get, and it shaped everything that came next in his career. In Chapter 2, we trace that path, from sweeping floors to running businesses and what he learned about leadership, profit, accountability, and passion along the way.
Yes.
Okay.
Right?
So I tell you, I started off sweeping floors. That's where I began. I started off sweeping floors. Eventually, I had worked up to a point where it's the equivalent of a Marks and Spencer's in South Africa. That kind of structure, that type of organization, a very great schooling system to learn in. I kind of evolved through the street, if that's the right word. It does sound terrible. But I evolved through the street because most of the people that got onto management programs went to university first, then got into the program. I got in because I'm always curious about what I'm doing. I don't believe in getting stuck in what a preconceived idea of what it is. If someone needs this, you need to grow with it. If you don't want to grow with it, then understand that's not your place. Anyway, to cut a long story short, because you said not an hour.
Yes. What's
I went into property. I went into engineering supplies. I went into distribution. I turned the company around from being in the red to the black. It was in high-end giftware and kitchenware. So I had a broad brushstroke of business. The key takeaway from that: turnover is ego and profit's what you're there for. If you're not making profit, you're not sustainable. Even if you're still growing within that and you still need finance, if you cannot show you're making profit, what are you offering? How are you going to keep adding value?
How does that work today, right? With all the debt-driven businesses and nations, right? Like, which business is actually profitable these days? Because it's just monopoly money that are just being given amongst friends. Yeah, what are your thoughts? Oh my gosh, maybe that's a separate topic.
Look, we can discuss that in detail in another topic. I would say to you like this: it's a game. If you look at it, it's a game, because at the end of the day, person A comes along and he says, I own X amount of shares. I will use that as surety to finance your business. And it's not their money as such. Yes, it's their risk. But at the end of the day, you still have to pay that back. You're still responsible for it. A lot of people I know in the past who invested in businesses, the person had to put equity in themselves for them to be involved. Because at the end of the day, it's got to be your house you lose if I'm adding money to the pot. I need you hungry that you're going to want to make this work as much as I do. The only issue I find with that is that sometimes the psychology of lack of damages the process. Because if I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to pay this month? It's one of the things that for me is very important. I had a person who approached me for partnership, and they said, well, I'm going to do it part-time. And I said, well, that doesn't really work for me, because if you're doing it part-time, then you're not committed to what we're going to do. It requires a focus that's what you want to do. Even when you're on holiday, you're going to go and look at businesses that are similar, even if it's in a hardware perspective or in a software perspective. What is going on out there other than in your bubble? Because you can learn from everybody what's going on around you. So then they said, no, I will give 100% commitment to this. And I said, and can you survive? And they said,
Mm.
well, I think for 6 months. And I said, well, I can't work with you. And the reason why I said that is not because they weren't competent, not because it wasn't a potential success. It was the fact that I didn't believe that with that setup, they're going to pass. They're going to achieve what they want to achieve.
Yeah.
And if you can't give yourself the mindset, like if you're not giving yourself a year to 2 years to give yourself the time to succeed, that's why most businesses crash.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the stats, right? Like there more than 90% of like most small businesses don't even make it through the first year or 5 years. I think it's the first year, right?
It's stronger in the first year, and 5 years is up to 5 years is still
Up to 5. Yeah.
in the danger zone. And then you have Qualcomm that took how much money on lies and cheating. And one of the things I'm glad we're having this discussion about, because even from a politics point of view, I am saying, why aren't politicians held accountable? Because in the business, if I came to you and said, George, I'm going to increase your turnover by 50%. And you'll say, fine, I'm going to pay you to increase my turnover by 50%. If I'm not achieving it, aren't you going to say, look, it's not working for me. It was great while it lasted. I'm going to notice a month or whatever to get where you said you're going to. Otherwise, we're going to part ways. Why would the politician, they can say whatever they want and no one holds them accountable? And then,
because that's how
and then how, if that's the case, can you trust a leader that what they say and what they do are not correlating?
It is wild. Yeah, it seems to be the same in almost every country around the world, that everybody knows that politicians lie, and yet there's still so much divide when people talk politics, right? About this person's policy or that camp's policy, whereas we all know that in the end they say whatever they want in order to get into power, and once they're in power, they do whatever they want, right? And as you said, no accountability.
No accountability, and all I'm saying is the accountability should be on what you stand for. If you're telling living what you're going to do, that's why I'm voting for you. I don't care which party you come from. I don't care which side of the left or the right that you're coming from. If you're telling me I'm going to focus on education, I'm going to focus on getting jobs, and this is what I want to achieve in the next 5 years, that's why I'm giving you my vote of confidence. Or even as far as a business investment goes, or relationship goes, if you're telling me this is what you're going to do, don't make promises you can't keep, because all you're doing is you're killing your credibility.
Yeah. But incentives, though, right? I think about this with democracy too, that the incentive is only there for 4 years or 8 years, typically, right? And the rules, if we talk about games, all games have rules, but actually the people who create the rules often sit outside it. So in other words, those ones feel that they can always cheat in order to win the game, because they're the ones that set the rules.
Okay, so I'm saying like this, it's like what I don't understand, and what breaks my heart about Africa is that leaders, I was blessed to have Nelson Mandela at the time that apartheid died, thank God. But his energy and attitude was incredible. I don't know if you've read The Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela.
I have not.
One of the key aspects, he always focused on the good in people. He always allowed people to save face. And he'd focus on bitterness. He understood that there was a great divide, for people who don't know what apartheid is, between whites and blacks. And the biggest challenge was that, and understandably, is when black people who were oppressed before suddenly came into power, necessarily have the skill sets to be able to continue the process.
Yes.
Under Mandela, there was still a crossover, but after that, that broke. And
Yeah.
I mean, why are consultants earning money today? Because they understand to help whoever they're helping. These are the steps that I believe are going to help you to achieve the results you want to. Someone came to me, we were speaking yesterday to one of my clients, and they said to me, I've got these two people that are both good, that I want in to employ them for retail. So I said, the retail arm of their software application, they're in circular economy with fashion art.
Yeah. And we didn't even get to your business. Yeah, so we got it.
Listen, to me, I go with the flow where it takes me.
Love.
And I said to them, my suggestion is ask them to write a proposal. Ask them what they're going to do with this opportunity. Because at the end of the day, it's their personal. If you ask me about my style of management, I'm not interested to prescribe to you. I want to know what you plan to do with the opportunity. Because if I understand what you prepare to do with the opportunity, I don't need to manage you. I just need to see the results you're claiming.
Yeah.
If you, someone who likes to work at 11 o'clock until 5 in the morning, then great. Why must I take you? You've got to be there from 8 until 5. That's part of the nonsense. And I think in the lines of what I understand of you, that if you look at the way that mankind's going, manual labor, robotics, is going to take over. And in fact, I was having a discussion yesterday. What happens when you suddenly have free time? And what are you going to use with, what tools are you going to use to maximize your time?
Exactly.
You choose a career. So I say to them like this: if tomorrow I wasn't going to pay you 1 cent, you would be cared for. What would you do?
Yeah.
And if you're not doing what you wouldn't be paid for, then you shouldn't be doing it. And it's the same as if I'm doing something that I'm passionate about, I see a pain point, I want to change the world, I want to bring light, if you want to call it, or I want to bring, make other people's lives easier. Can I do it for free? Because at certain stages you are.
Yep, exactly. That's a very, very good point, and I think good reminder for a lot of people, right? Because they're going to be confronted with this question for themselves now.
George and Ariyeh have covered a lot of ground, from early career hustle to accountability, passion, and what it really means to lead. Now the conversation shifts into bigger territory: AI, the nature of consciousness, and why the real competition isn't human versus human anymore. Chapter 3 is where it gets philosophical.
You know, when I was in Mexico just last year, my father visited from Singapore. And I was asking him two similar questions, interestingly enough, because his life was very much defined by his career. And as he's gotten older, he's now realizing, oh, okay, maybe my life isn't all about my career. And, you know, it's super fascinating when you ask people who I think have been so conditioned, so programmed, right, to pursue a certain thing, that then reality hits and they realize, I don't actually really know what I want. Like, if you took away my career, my status, my money, like, who am I without that? And yet that is actually the most important part of us as human beings, which is to come into this life, I feel, at least, and to know what we are meant to be doing, regardless of, you know, all these other things that we think we should be doing. Um, and I'm fortunate now that, like, I feel that I'm in a place that I am doing those things, right? But it did also take a lot of ups and downs and, you know, heartaches and those sort of things. But I think for a lot of people, they are also still figuring that out. And I think the environment, you know, you're talking about environment before, being able to keep yourself stable when you might be in a chaotic environment, right? To keep yourself centered, because I think there's so many distractions in society today that, even here as an example in Thailand, right? My earlier, younger, naive, westernized, capitalist, loving self would look at, say, someone who is a Buddhist monk, right, to be unproductive, right? For holy people who don't do necessarily, right? I now see what some of these Buddhist monks have been doing for a long time as a lot more important from a consciousness standpoint, because they literally are sitting with themselves, freeing their minds from distractions to actually get to the heart of who they are. And if anything, all of this progress that we think we have been building, we have to ask ourselves, has it improved our consciousness? Has it improved our state of humanness? And to me, I think with what's happening with AI, because it's flipping so much on its head, it's forcing us now to really look at that. I think before we had an option, a way out. But the way that I'm seeing, at least because of how close I am to emerging tech, and I have been throughout my career, I am seeing that now humans cannot keep up speed-wise with what's taking place. They have to literally shift gears into an entirely new mode. That speed, being a faster human being, they just will not be able to keep up with the silicon energy. And I think now, from a lot of the conversation I've been having with people, it's becoming more about coherence. And this comes up a lot. Some people say resonance, but I call it coherence because it's that ability to, the analogy I give is like, trying to outrun a horse. Obviously you can't do it. So human beings then, figured out how to ride a horse, right? And while you're on the horse, you're not still running, trying to be faster than the horse. You just have to learn how to be stable on it. And the thing with AI is the equivalent of, now you might be on a chariot with hundreds of horses and you have to know how to keep all of those. And imagine, and think of all those horses as AI agents. And I think that's what I sense is shifting now, is that we are being forced to confront that as a potential reality, right? If we want to still engage with technology, then it's like we have to shift that position of where we were before, right? Before maybe we would have been able to ride a single horse without technology. But now what do you do when you're given multiple horses, in the hundreds, in the thousands maybe, right? I'm already seeing this with a lot of my really smart developer friends, business owners. Those are my memory. They are having a bit of a cognitive collapse because AI is allowing them to do more. And so they fill up the void, right, of this free time. Instead of using that to look within, right, as we've been talking about, they use that to fill it up with more because that is, I think, the energy of carbon, us, right, survival. And I think it's super fascinating to see that even now in the business world, people are referring to carbon-based beings versus silicon now because of the state at which AI is now integrating with robotics and machines, right? If it can think, we will have this where we will be the carbon, they will be the silicon-based. And what's going to happen in between? Do we evolve? Do we completely abandon? What do we do next? Oh my God, I went 4 minutes over time for you.
I apologize. I'm happy to continue this discussion another time.
Let's do it.
I really appreciate speaking with you. It's been
likewise.
But
we need more time
to explore some more surfing through the universe of mankind's evolution on another time.
Perfect. Let's do it. I'll send a follow-up. And let's book in an hour slot this time to give ourselves more time.
All right.
Okay.
Super.
All right.
Thanks so much.
We'll talk again soon.
Take care. Bye.
That's a wrap on this episode of How Our Tools Shape Us with host George C.O.C. Samuels. If this conversation sparked something in you, make sure to subscribe. There's a lot more where that came from. And we'll leave you with the question Ariyeh posed that's worth sitting with. If you weren't being paid for it, what would you do?